These are the new faces that will form the backbone of Newcastle United, and the first 5 signings already have the club in an enviable position.
You need a good keeper, and Liam's it. You need some good defenders, and Andrew Durante and Craig Deans fit the bill perfectly. You need a good midfield. Nicky Carl, in my estimation, is the best young midfielder in this country by a mile. And you need a bloke who can bang in 20 goals a year.
That's where Ante Milicic comes in. He phoned in from Malaysia, where he's playing in that country's Super League, but will relocate to Newcastle in the new year. All have signed 3 or 4 year deals and are looking forward to playing for Newcastle.
If Terry Venable's been coming here, it's a good thing to be able to work with someone of that calibre, and the town's a very good sporting town.
Several local faces are also likely to be on board when training starts in February, including assistant coach Gary Van Egmond.
Joe Wheelhouse and Stewie Mueslick. Negotiations have taken place with them. Robbie Middleby's another important cog in the wheel. Peter Sekenis is another important squad member that we're keen to talk to.
The new logo depicts fighter jets in formation, a symbol of strength and power.
We have left no stone unturned to make sure that we've got a very, very successful side. If we have success on the field, the fans will come.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. After finishing 160th on the American LPGA Tour this year, Cherie Burns will have to re-qualify in the States for next year's tour. With that in mind, she was hard at work on the Branxton course today in stinking hot and blustery conditions for the annual Charity Pro-Am. Cherie will tee off at Daytona Beach in Florida next month in the 90-hole qualifying tournament for the LPGA, and after the loss this year of her major sponsor, Horizons, she's self-funding her shot at the tour to the tune of $10,000.
There'll be 140 of us there trying out for, they haven't announced how many cards, but probably about 25. So hopefully that's my aim, to get into those top 25 positions.
She had a better result on the European Tour this year, finishing 72nd and retaining her playing card for next year.
If everything doesn't go as planned over in Daytona in a couple of weeks' time, I'll head back to Europe next year, where I know I can play well and finish up the top 10 all the time, hopefully.
She was 6 over in today's round, which marked a return to play for Burns, who hasn't lifted a club for the past month since a hectic season of juggling US and European events.
Officials say it was fairly even racing at Caves Beach, but try telling Hunter crews with their Central Coast cousins keeping the rivalry well and truly alive. In the Vets, Terrigal continued its push for a series win, while Fingal grabbed the under-21s ladies' scalp in what was calm, clean conditions. Central Coast powerhouse Avoca Beach was the best placed club overall, while host Caves Beach ended its round 3 campaign on top of the under-19s. The series moves to Avoca Beach next Sunday. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
These are some of the fastest wind-powered craft on the water, but light conditions on the lake this morning made for a slower than expected start to day 3 of the multi-hull nationals. Keith Glover's $500,000 trimaran trilogy from Port Macquarie is in the hunt for the title, along with Rupert Hutchins' Voodoo Spirit from Port Hacking. Daryl Dorsett's brand new carbon fibre racer, Carbon Copy, is among the favourites, but Lake Macquarie entry and last year's winner Turning Point had the best start today. Local knowledge saw her split from the others before arriving at the first mark well before Voodoo Spirit and Carbon Copy, who fought it out for second and third positions. There are 42 boats racing in 3 divisions, the largest turnout for any multi-hull event in Australia this year.
And like all sailors, they love to have a race, and it's the speed of the multi-hulls that get them.
It'll take a week of racing to decide the best of the best.
They're executives, tradesmen, mature job seekers, parents and grandparents. It's these people who are guiding students looking to leave school after Year 10 but don't know what they want to do.
I felt that it's time for me to give something back to the community. I really enjoy young people. I love being around young people.
It gives them a chance for their life skills and their life experiences to be valued.
Mentors work one-on-one to identify the skills and interests of students.
She's helped me show different paths I can take and what to do in order to get there.
It helps you make up your mind and they help you with your personality, what you should do.
The program was designed to help the 14% of young people in Australia aged between 15 and 19 who are not in full-time education, training or employment. In the past 2 years, more than 400 students from 12 schools have taken part in the 3-month program, including this group, which will graduate tonight. A pilot program is currently being run in Muswellbrook with plans to introduce it to other schools across the Hunter. Colleen West, NBN News.
We all wince when we see a cowboy take a tumble, but according to some, it's the animals that suffer the most at these outback carnivals.
All rodeo events, as we see it, are basically a spectacle, so-called, of animal abuse. Animals inevitably suffer to be put through a rodeo process.
Animal liberationists are behind a push to have rodeos banned throughout Australia, saying elements intrinsic to the sport are against legislation.
I've been to rodeos where calves have died, where they've had their legs broken. I've seen the use of the electric prodder over and over and over again on a bull and horses to get them agitated and infuriated and terrified so that when they come out of the chute, they're bucking.
But rodeo associations say the interaction between human, horse and cattle in the arena is not dissimilar to what goes on at a farm, and there are very few injuries because rodeo animals are bred into the sport.
The horses are kept and cattle are kept in very good condition. They're conditioned to being transported, so there's very little stress. They learn certain behaviours about going into the chutes and they do certain things out of habit.
Animal welfare groups will use veterinary evidence in their efforts to have rodeos outlawed across the nation.
These animals are not interested in these performances. I mean, they are put through it, they're forced to do this. They have no interest in performing for us.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
These buildings in here, which are terrace type buildings, and clusters of them, which are apartments.
Right.
So if people want to have a short stay, they can stay in the...
It's vacant land and very much in the public eye. For years, we've been promised bigger and better things on the old BHP site in the way of a multi-purpose shipping terminal, one that could eventually handle up to 1 million containers a year.
The multi-purpose terminal has had 4 respondents to the call for initial proposals, and we are just about finalised the evaluation of that response.
Keeping commercial confidence, the Ports Corporation won't confirm or deny if the country's 2 major stevedoring companies, Patrick's and P&O, are involved in the tender. In a report tabled by the competition watchdog, the ACCC, it found labour costs per freight container have risen since 1998. The result has come as no surprise to the Maritime Union, which claims a fresh investment in the Newcastle operation could help break open an otherwise impenetrable market.
Australia-wide, there's been a problem with the duopoly and the pricing policies of the duopoly, and certainly the multi-purpose terminal here in Newcastle is going to have a dramatic impact on that.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Rain at the right time and in the right place has been the perfect tonic for the state's struggling wheat industry, boosting yields and quality to their best level in 7 years.
We've just come off a less than average year and a drought prior to that. This is very good news.
GrainCorp is expecting between 2.5 and 2.7 million tonnes of grain from the current harvest,
which is about double what we originally thought. So we'll see approximately an extra 40 ships coming in and out of the port to handle grain.
A silo-busting 27,000 tonnes of grain was delivered to Moree on Sunday, smashing GrainCorp's previous delivery record by almost 10,000 tonnes. Bumper crops are being harvested in areas from Dubbo to the Queensland border, with Moree, Narrabri and Walgett stripping prime quality wheat from their fields. And while farmers in those areas have every reason to celebrate, GrainCorp's Newcastle site has been forced to make some drastic changes before the first loaded grain train arrives in Newcastle tomorrow.
We're putting on additional staff commencing early December, and as well as that, we've just been through a major maintenance program and upgrade of the terminal control system.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Botha's stunning win over Moroccan Prince Hamid is still fresh in the minds of fight fans in the Hunter. With 17 wins from 21 bouts, the Warners Bay kickboxer will take to the ring again tomorrow night at Panthers Newcastle against Melbourne hotshot Brett Franklin. The evenly matched opponents weighed in today in the light cruiser class, which is under 81.4 kilos, and their fight promises to be a cracker.
Yeah, we've fought twice before. We've got to win a piece, so this one's going to be a decider, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I suppose you're not going to go into the ring not confident, but I just know it'll be a tough fight. So, as he said, whoever's better on the night will get the tick over.
2 split decisions, 2 very close fights, 2 hard fights. They both want it really bad.
21-year-old Jared has a state title to his credit, 20-year-old Brett a WMC Australian title. And when both fighters think they're going to win, they're in for a tough battle.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident, but I'm sure Brett's confident as well. We both trained hard for it, so it's going to be the best man on the night. We'll have a beer with him afterwards either way.
The shape-up will be the highlight of a 10-bout card tomorrow night. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
These are the young people who will shape Australia's future. The fifth-year students were allowed to set their own project and come up with their dream building. Among the models were a church, a brewery, even an embassy. When designing their building, the students had to take into account the needs of the client and the natural geography. But as the graduates see this profession as more of an art form, it was a challenge they relished.
It's always sort of been a bit of a dream of mine. The creativity combined with all the technical bits and pieces.
Newcastle Uni is one of only 4 universities teaching architecture in the state, and the only institution offering the course outside Sydney. Many of the students claim the Newcastle course is unique because it emphasises making their buildings environmentally friendly, and they say this is the way of the future.
I think it was a fairly talented year, and I'm quite excited to see where people will end up.
The exhibition now moves to Sydney, where prospective employers can view the students' models. Christine Tondorf, NBN News.
Graham Boyd estimates he'll be $20,000 out of pocket because the council pulled the plug on this weekend's event. It was to be run at the Energy Australia car park, but a red tape bungle has meant it's had to shift out west.
I could fight the council, but you never win that, so I've just decided to back off and we'll move it to Tamworth.
Mr Boyd has run more than a dozen similar events in Newcastle before and had never had to lodge a development application. But it seems when you take an event out of an actual arena, it becomes a whole new ball game.
The crazy thing about it all is I've run 13 events in Newcastle City Council area and never had to put a development application. Every time I've written to the council, they've always come back that it's exempt development.
He assumed that because the event occurred in the stadium a few years ago, that the same rules would apply in the car park, but in fact they were different.
Council says the car park venue presented a problem because it was not enclosed and there were also noise concerns. But Mr Boyd isn't the only one losing out, with thousands of dollars in accommodation cancelled.
We had 20 room nights at the Crown Plaza. We've had heaps of, over 100 competitors coming to stay in Newcastle. Now we've all transferred that business and gone straight to Tamworth.
It's certainly not a done deal, but it's the closest the two competitions have come to an agreement that would see them operate under the one banner. There were heated discussions at the Newcastle Leagues Club last night as representatives from the Newcastle and Lower Hunter Rugby League competitions began the next chapter of amalgamation talks.
As it is now, the Lower Hunter clubs are stretched to the limit in both officials and in players, so that's why the players are saying, well, we're not coming back. Just correct you.
It caps off what's been a tough year, with Waratah folding in round 8 of the competition because of a lack of player numbers and injuries, while Maitland was forced to drop out for a season for the same reason. While it's hoped a merger would strengthen rugby league in the region, there are concerns about the movement of players between Newcastle and Lower Hunter clubs.
If we try and force the players to come play with us, is he really going to put his effort in?
It's better for rugby league if they all work in the one direction, under the one control.
And while that issue needs to be sorted, there's expected to be plenty of long-term benefits for the clubs involved.
Controlling suspensions, registrations, insurance. At the moment there has been occasions where people have played in both competitions.
The proposed merger will be discussed at special meetings of both league outfits in coming weeks. Colleen West, NBN News.
Drunken brawls, abusive behaviour, even the threat of assault are keeping people away from the city centre in the evening. That's the view of the Newcastle Safe Streets Committee. While the latest crime statistics show a decline in the number of assaults in the Hunter, the Safe Streets Committee, a group made up of traders and residents, last night held a meeting to look at why more and more people are afraid to venture out after dark.
There's nobody on the street to make them feel safe, like there's no police authorities, and they also just, see the damage, I suppose, that's done from the night before, and it just gives them a feeling of insecurity.
Mr Buman said the meeting came up with a 3-step plan to make Newcastle safer. More police on the street, a ban on new liquor licences, and the trial of a 1 a.m. lockdown for late-night trading venues.
Well, it will definitely reduce the numbers on the street, which will really help the police in trying to do their job and bring it more under control. It will stop people from wandering from venue to venue.
The idea of a 1 a.m. lockdown is gaining support. Newcastle City Council will vote on a motion to petition the state government to trial the lockdown. Christine Tondorf, NBN News.
It was organised chaos on at least one basketball court in Newcastle this afternoon. The Harlem Globetrotters have redefined how basketball is played, showing off their mastery of trick shots, fancy passes and effortless dribbling in front of more than 120 million people from 117 countries. Just like their namesake, they're travelling the globe, some of the team's stars today mixing it with young players from across the region.
So we're just trying to enhance what they're learning and try to take them to another level.
They're not only superior athletes, but have managed to get in touch with the funniest side of life, and that's proved to be their key to success.
The laughter goes over anything else. And once you can come and have someone laugh and have a good time, that's why we've been around for over 78 years.
The basketball is fun. I mean, it's not only just, running up and down the court, but it's a lot of fun.
The Globetrotters will perform at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre on Thursday night.
Bye-bye, Newcastle. See you on Thursday.
Colleen West, NBN News. Surf lifesaving is as much a part of an Australian summer as barbecues, swimming and sunscreen. But there's been a rapid decline in the number of teenagers now participating in the sport, prompting today's event.
As kids move towards the more senior type sport, they tend to drop off. There's a lot of pressures on young kids to participate in different activities.
These Year 7 to 12 students shouldn't have much trouble sleeping tonight, with board, running, flags and Ironman events keeping them on their toes. On more sturdy ground, and 75 athletes from the Hunter and Central Coast were doing their best to convince selectors they should be given one of 18 remaining spots in the Hunter Academy of Sport Track and Field team. It's this very squad that has helped produce some of Australia's top sportsmen and women, including sprinter Chad Stevenson. The squad will be announced in February. Colleen West, NBN News. On paper, it's an outstanding team boasting youth and enough talent to make any side sit up and take notice. Jade North has been described as one of the hottest defenders currently available in Australia. Today, the 22-year-old, who was part of the Athens Olympic soccer squad, signed a 2-year contract with the Jets. He joins 8 other new recruits, including the 2004 NSL Player of the Year, Ante Milicic, and Sydney's Nick Carl.
I know him really well, play with him, won championships with him, so hopefully bring a championship here.
19-year-old Stuart Measurelik has been granted his wish of playing on home soil, today signing a 3-year contract.
It's going to make it tough to get a run in that, but happy to be amongst those sort of players and looking forward to it.
The New Look side will have its first training run on February the 14th.
It's a time to restock now, check out how much money we've got left under the salary cap, and then we'll go from here.
The Newcastle Golf Club course is testing at the best of times, but throw in some wind and it's downright cruel. The gust kept mozzies away but did little to help this afternoon's group, including Sydney's Kevin Kenny.
Wind's a bit tough at the moment, but it's grinding away and just trying to make a few places up on the board today.
Despite the challenge, the Irishman was on track for a top 60 finish. Belmont's Kurt Lind also lives to fight another day, taking every opportunity to practice his long game.
It was pretty ugly out there and I just really gutsed it out, and my short game got me out of a lot of trouble.
No such worries for Victorian Roland Baglan, making a clean break on the leaderboard to finish at 5 under, feeling right at home.
Being from Victoria, we have a lot of sandbelt courses similar to this, so conditions are fairly similar, but it's a little bit softer than last year. Greens are a bit more receptive, so playing a little bit easier.
Play continues tomorrow. Adam McKilrick, NBN News. Pale and withdrawn, Geordie Cullen looked an unlikely contender for tonight's game. The only other concern is co-captain Brendan Mann suffering from a troublesome hamstring.
It felt pretty good this morning. I was a bit concerned on Wednesday and yesterday, but I looked after it pretty well and I'll be fine for tonight.
Already accounting for league heavyweight Wollongong earlier this month, the Pirates are out to show it was no fluke.
Yeah, they're obviously going to want to try and get one back on us, but yeah, I couldn't care less what they're trying to do to us. We know what we're going to do and put on a good show and get the win tonight.
If they do, it will be their 4th consecutive win at home and another step closer to the playoffs.
We're getting to that stage now where we're starting to play on instinct.
And at the FINA World Cup in Melbourne, Stockton's Justin Norris has qualified for tonight's 200-metre butterfly final after finishing 2nd in today's heat. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Every day of young Sam Jones's life has been spent with poor vision. In fact, he has about a quarter the sight enjoyed by most. Today his classmates saw things his way. Along with some special guests from the Newcastle Knights, they donned masks to get a picture of what life is like for the visually impaired. Thanks to the Royal Blind Society and the Department of Education, Sam's educational needs are catered for at Maryland Public School, so he can remain among friends. But today he provided one of life's lessons that'll help them understand fellow students who also live with a disability.
If you look around the playground today, you'll probably have trouble finding those students because they're just part of the number of students here. So they're totally accepted into the school community, but we have special programs within the school day to meet their needs.
Enjoying a close relationship with both Sam and the Blind Society, Kurt Gidley and co helped make it a day to remember. But today's class is one all of us are encouraged to take.
I'd like to see a bit more of this for everybody that's got a special need.
As for the hats, the kids paid for the privilege, with all money raised for the Royal Blind Society. Jim Callanan, NBN News. It's a side coach Adrian Hurley has hoped to see all week. His frontline trio of Geordie Cullen and Russell Hinder, who've recovered from illness, and Ben Melmoth, who's nursed injury this week, all back on court.
They may be a little bit short of gas tomorrow night, but everyone will be right for the game, so we feel very good about that.
The bench will get plenty of work too, not just tomorrow night, but over the next 6 games, with a heavy rotation needed to shoulder the load. Larry Davidson, one of those challenged to answer the call.
You're just keen to get out there and play, and when the coach says, it's time to step up, then that's what you want to do and show everyone what you can do.
That's what he hopes to do against some of his childhood idols tomorrow night.
The Tigers were my team when I was growing up. I loved watching them the whole time, like Gaze, Bradkey and Copeland, and just being out there on the court with them, it'll be great.
The match-up between the coaches will be another highlight, with Lindsay Gaze and Hurley both great friends and foes.
We know each other's games very, very well, and of course Andrew does, because I've coached Andrew over about 8 or 10 years as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It hasn't been the best of times for Nick Flanagan since turning pro earlier in the year, and he started today knowing he had to shoot the lights out on a testing Coolum layout to have any chance of making the cut. Beginning 7 under, he went the wrong way early, but showed the poise that will hold him in good stead over his professional career by toughing out the day and actually picking up strokes before hitting the clubhouse. Playing a second day with a childhood idol like Greg Norman and Australia's rising international star Adam Scott might have been experience enough for Kurt Barnes, but the Muswellbrook boy was keen to put on a show as well. The big hitter also showing some touch that served him well in recent weeks. Both missed the cut by a long way, but fellow Hunter Bay's golfer James Nitties has a big weekend ahead of him. As reported, he's at 12 under after taking advantage of the gentle morning conditions, but he actually hopes it whips up a bit over the final rounds.
I'd probably prefer it below because I hit a lower ball and it's more comfortable for me to hit lower shots into the breeze. So, but yeah, I'm just happy to make the cut and have a decent event.
Matai is the first African woman to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She is the event hosted by Oprah Winfrey and Tom Cruise to call on the world to embrace the diversity, beauty and wonder of creation. Matai and the packed Oslo Spectrum Concert Hall were treated to entertainment ranging from drums and dances to British teenage pop sensation Joss Stone.
Many of us would be familiar with the inspiring stories of these two little legends. Safari captured the heart of millions of Australians when his battle against severe burns was captured on camera for the RPA program and A Current Affair. Stockton's Brittany Gilbert-Tasker is also a burn survivor who's no stranger to the camera, and when she learned Safari was in town, well, there was only one option.
I've been so inspired of what he's been through and stuff like that, and I just feel like I want to meet him, and I've been nagging Mum for ages, ever since I saw him on TV.
So Mum Cherie went about making sure it happened.
He's looked at Brittany's photos and things with her, and I think just realising that, there are other kids like him around the world.
The bond between the pair, after only 2 hours of knowing one another, is truly heartwarming, and we can only begin to imagine how deep the connection really goes.
I gave him a ring, a special little ring that always stays black and it changes colour for whatever mood you're in, and it's called a mood ring.
And as Newcastle's two biggest Carols by Candlelight celebrations near, Safari, Brittany and KidSafe have a special message for children and their parents.
Candles and children don't mix, so if your children have got candles, make sure that you supervise them very closely and don't let them walk around with them. Make sure they're sitting down, supervised, watching what they're doing.
For years, Matt Murray didn't walk so eagerly through the school gates. Today, wild horses couldn't stop him. Topping Aboriginal studies, the Hunter School of the Performing Arts student was bursting with pride.
You go into, the HSC time and just think, you can do your best, and then you come out with a result like this. Can't top that.
I told him at the beginning of year 11 that if he worked hard, he could top the state, and he didn't believe me at the time.
Matt has no Aboriginal background, yet the local Koori community has adopted the 18-year-old who aspires to studying law and Aboriginal studies at university.
Yeah, I'm proud. I'm flying with the eagle, mate. I've climbed a mountain and that young bloke has lifted me up 1,000 times over.
Just as proud, the family of Newcastle Grammar's Michael Abbott. HSC markers couldn't fault the Mathematics Extension 1 student or 3-unit maths in the old scheme, topping the state with a perfect 100.
I never really thought at the start of year 11 that I'd actually come first at the end of it. So it was a surprise.
With university scores out tomorrow, Michael hopes to study commerce law next year. Beneath this colourful surface of food and drink is a dedicated group of volunteers, many of whom will never meet the very people they're assisting.
They've just done so much work with the unloading and the packing, and it's of great value, and it's important to have community help community.
500 hampers were put together at Mayfield this morning. All up, 1,200 will be sent to needy families, and in some ways the Samaritans hope they'll only have to make the one visit.
The results are when a client or a family come in for assistance and then they don't come back, then to us that's a positive outcome because obviously they're managing.
And the Samaritans are again preparing to host Christmas lunch on the foreshore, appealing not only to the homeless but lonely as well.
It's for people who may be alone on Christmas Day, who may not have a family connection or for some reason can't be with their family, or there may be a family breakdown, and it's open to people who are needing that support.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The storm front loomed like a giant mushroom across the lower Hunter, with equally powerful cells splitting west to the Hunter Valley and east to the sea. The worst of it crossed Lake Macquarie, dumping heavy rain and hail. It hit the lakeside suburb of Warners Bay with a vengeance, wind gusts of over 100 kilometres an hour tearing off roofs.
It just came with so much velocity and the hail was sort of going this way and raining, and then all of a sudden you heard this big tearing noise, and that guy's roof just went bingo at about 150 k's an hour and took out my television aerial and wrecked all that roof over there next door.
It's the second time a storm has ripped the roof from this rental house, the occupants forced to move out.
Oh yeah, I got a computer and all that, so I pull everything out. Yeah, lots of damage everywhere.
Their roofing iron landed on a neighbour's tiles, leaving gaping holes.
Good news was it was their roof, bad news it landed on our house.
2 cars in a nearby shopping centre car park were destroyed when a large tree was blown over. A garage disintegrated after its roof was blown off. Untimely damage for the homeowners who are trying to sell. And 2 people were taken to hospital after lightning struck their boat on Lake Macquarie. When the worst had passed, the calming sky produced a spectacular display, a strangely beautiful end to a wild afternoon. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Former concreter and father of 2, Constable Paul Proctor, has welcomed his posting at Cessnock.
I was looking forward to some challenges, different challenges in life and in my occupation, so I thought I'd join the police service.
He's one of 7 additional officers that began walking the beat for the first time this morning. 5 probationary constables who have just completed their police training at Goulburn will be based permanently at Maitland, with 1 each at Cessnock and Raymond Terrace. The new recruits form part of a greater plan to boost staffing levels across the region at areas in greatest need. Meanwhile, a 3-month trial is being carried out at Nelson Bay, Kurri Kurri and Beresfield, which will see police operating in those areas 24 hours a day.
The bottom line is the community needs a response time capability. Instead of having to rely on vehicles coming from Raymond Terrace, they'll have their own vehicles in that area now, so the response to the community when they call for service should be there.
It comes just in time for the busy holiday season when the population in Port Stephens' popular beach precinct more than doubles.
With that increase obviously comes some more petty crime, mainly along the lines of stealing, some break and enters and some assaults, so we'll be targeting those areas. We'll be placing additional resources on the needs basis.
Colleen West, NBN News.
Chance laid on, the sneaks it! Would you believe it? Daniel McBreen is the man. Bingley making a run in the inside left channel. Chance for Newcastle, easy goal.
Only a year ago, Nick Donald was crowned Australia's Male Youth Swimmer of the Year, while he began 2004 in style with 5 gold at the National Age Championships. The 16-year-old freely admits performances nosedived mid-year, but that's all about to change, thanks to a slight attitude adjustment.
I was blaming everybody else. Turned my eyes in and realised, okay, I haven't been training, I haven't been stepping up properly, and I've really stepped up the last 3 months.
To represent Australia at January's World Youth Olympics in Sydney, the once 1,500 metre specialist will pour most energy next year into the 200 butterfly and breaking John Seaban's long-standing age record over the distance.
It's more of a stepping stone than a record because 2 years later he won at the Olympics and got the world records.
Training around 20 hours a week, he sees a lot of new sport teammate Hayden Jackson. He jets out on January 2 for the Junior Pan-Pacific meet in Hawaii. Having just completed his HSC, Hayden's schoolies has met plenty of time looking at the black line.
And each time I get up in the morning or come to training in the afternoon, I know what I'm looking forward to. I know what I'm racing at, and I know I've got to prepare myself for the probably hardest competition I've ever raced in.
Personal best times are on their Christmas lists, but as for the day itself...
Christmas Day is a sleep-in. Only sleep-in I get, so yeah, that's it.
No one can quite pinpoint how Hunter has managed to lose 4 games on the road despite holding big leads, but taunts they can't finish off may just prompt a return serve.
It's frustrating, and we know we can, we just know we haven't. So to hear those type of things, you read them and, it kind of gets you motivated for practice and everything, but you can't spend too much focus on it.
Weathers can't remember a time when he's been shooting so consistently, but he'd rather relive what it's like to win. Hunter doesn't play again until January 2 at home against Cairns, and that's when the real run to a playoffs berth begins.
Come the first, it's a whole new ball game. Everybody gets a clean slate, made all the resolutions. So
I don't want to change the team. It's a great team and great guys. We just need a team which is able to play 48 minutes.
This isn't the image you'd expect of the family GP, but Dr. William Huang's medical career has been action-packed. Commended for his work as part of the Australian peacekeeping force in East Timor, and more recently in training US military doctors to treat Iraq war victims, Dr. Huang has set up practice at Bullaroo for a change of pace.
The US military have taken extensive casualties this year, and in the process of instructing, I've seen some quite interesting sights, and to educate my students with, and I am certainly relieved to be in a much more lower key environment for a while now.
Arriving home from Washington just a fortnight ago, the Chinese-born doctor that went to high school at Glendale heard that Bullaroo needed help and decided to step into the breach, much to the delight of locals.
This man came out of the blue and he has tremendous reputation, tremendous qualifications. In a little place like Bullaroo, we're thrilled to have him here.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Research is underway in Newcastle that brings new hope to more than 300 million people affected by asthma, 2.5 million of those in Australia. The federal government has chipped in $26 million, with that amount again put up by a major pharmaceutical company from the UK. Newcastle joins other research centres at Monash University, the University of Sydney and the Garvan and Woolcock Institutes.
We're going to focus on identifying new and novel targets for the treatment of asthma and allergy, and also for the development of new diagnostic methods and new monitors for the treatment of disease.
The funding will last 7 years, with lab work and trials involving patients to be carried out in Newcastle under the banner of the University of Newcastle and the Hunter Medical Research Institute.
Globally, asthma has been on the rise for a number of years, so it's recognised as a major disease burden in many Western communities. So what we now need is to develop new therapeutic approaches to the treatment of disease.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. Today's highway traffic nightmare prompted many to escape the frustration by visiting the town of Kurua. The only queue in the village today was for the ladies' toilets.
We just crawled. A lot of the people were getting out of their cars and walking.
So is that why you came into Kurua?
Came in here so we could get something to eat and go to the toilet.
More enjoyable anyhow than sitting in the car, line of cars for an hour or so.
It's been quiet in the town since the bypass opened in late September, with several businesses already closed. But today, a steady stream of holidaymakers either stopped for fuel and refreshments or tried to beat the bypass by cutting through the town. Whatever their reasons, it was good for business.
The traffic is bumper to bumper out on the new freeway, so they're coming back into town, which brings a lot of traffic and people back into town, which is good.
I think people have been stranded and, you know, they've still been blocked up through the bypass, so this is why we're getting an overload of business.
While the overall effect of bypassing the town has hurt local trade, today at least the big traffic jam proved that Kurua is still well and truly on the map.
While they did have their feet up, these donors were doing anything but relaxing on their day off. A Red Cross donor-mobile outside of Westfield's Kotara saw a steady flow of shoppers taking time out from the sales to do their bit.
Thought it would be a good idea. It's just I know people need to have transfusions.
I'm giving blood today because you never know when you're going to need it, and it stopped me from going into the shop spending all my money.
We've got lots of good people coming in on the public holiday to donate, which is excellent. And there was an even bigger turnout at the Newcastle Donor Centre.
It's been really heartwarming to see a lot of committed donors in the Hunter that have answered the call for blood.
While the demand for blood is constant, the need is especially acute over holiday periods.
Increase in demand is also always experienced over the Christmas holiday period due to increase in trauma, due to road accidents.
The blood banks are also operating on next Monday's public holiday, and appointments can be made by calling 13 14 95. Madeline Bonds, NBN News.
Following in the footsteps of Australian actresses Nicole Kidman, Naomi Watts and Sarah Winter, Newcastle's Miranda Otto is fast becoming a household name, starring in movies such as The Lord of the Rings. Her latest film, a big-budget blockbuster, The Flight of the Phoenix, lifting her profile to new heights. The movie is a remake of a 1960s film, an action-adventure in which a group of plane crash survivors stranded in the Mongolian desert attempt to build a new plane from the wreckage. For Miranda, the daughter of renowned actor Barry Otto, scoring the role was a major coup. Proud mum Lindsay Otto still lives in Newcastle and is over the moon to see her daughter rising through the ranks in Hollywood.
It was the sort of first big Hollywood break to make it into a big film, and opposite Dennis Quaid, and a pretty name sort of cast.
But for Miranda, it wasn't all glitz and glamour shooting the film.
Well, it was shot in Namibia, which is southwest Africa, and in fairly trying conditions. 4-month shoot, very hot, very dusty, desert conditions.
The Flight of the Phoenix opens in cinemas next month. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Preparations for one of the biggest party nights of the year started early this morning. More than 4,000 will fill the car park and surrounds of the brewery, while another 15,000 are expected further along the foreshore.
I think, half of Newcastle and half of the Hunter are going to either be here or at Warners Bay this year.
As early as lunchtime, people onshore and off began to make their way to Warners Bay to secure some of the best seats in the house.
Yeah, we're so excited here. We've got fireworks, music, family carnival, alcohol-free zone from 1, and we're hoping that everyone comes out and just has a lovely new year.
Measures to ensure the safety and hygiene of revellers were also introduced well in advance, and generously donating their time, St John's Ambulance volunteers checked and rechecked equipment this morning, ready to patch up any needy party patients tonight.
Some of the typical things that we see are blisters, especially from new shoes, some sunburn from people who've been partying since early in the day. Occasionally you'll see some people from overindulgence of alcohol.
Perhaps most importantly, the fireworks are rigged up and ready to see in the new year with a bang. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News. In the middle of the day, with the sun beaming down on its metallic surface, the slippery slide can deliver a nasty burn to the behind. The old ship has definitely sailed calmer seas, and who knows what's buried in this sand. But testament to the popularity of the Harbourside Park, the foreshore playground still gets used, a lot.
The existing playground is out of date. It's been here for over 10 years and this is a regional park and we really need to put similar facilities to the type of usage that the park has.
Plans on display at Newcastle Council paint a pretty picture for the future of playtime at the park. Existing slides will be replaced with swings and a special area for older kids. There's plenty of shade and seats for parents. There are also aspects which tie the recreational area to the city's history.
Especially the frogs relating to the frog pond, the train, because this was where all the old trains used to leave from, and we also have the railway shed.
Construction on the playground is scheduled to begin in March and could be completed in a matter of months. For the kids, that's rockin'. Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
It's been standard technology in the military for years, but for civil aviation, including helicopter aeromedical rescue teams like the Westpac service, it's still not allowed. Recent lobbying, though, has forced Australia's Civil Aviation Safety Authority to consider allowing the use of night vision goggles that pilots argue improve safety out of sight.
The only references we actually have on the ground are the lights of towns and maybe vehicles on the roads. If you're using night vision goggles, what actually you can see is you can see the whole structure. You can see the woods, you can see the fields, you can see areas that are clear areas of water clearly. And obviously it means when we come into land, we can actually see all the obstructions and also the hazards that may be there for us.
The Victorian Police Air Wing has been trialling the goggles, and pilots like Mike De Winton, who's used the technology flying for the military, hopes it'll soon be approved for civil rescue operations. The only setback is the cost, at over $100,000 per aircraft.
We obviously have to wait to see what the board and the public say about the introduction of it, because it is quite a large expense to the company. But the way it'll improve the safety aspect of what we do has got to be good for the future of the company and for the patients we actually deal with.
A decision from CASA is expected within months.